there's another thing that I want to talk to you about.
The Food and Drug
Okay.
Gas station heroin.
Yeah.
Food and Drug Administration
Okay. I can turn this up.
about a potentially addictive dietary supplement that's widely available in the U.S. Ali Rogan has the latest.
The FDA is asking Americans not to purchase or use any products from the supplemental brand Neptune's Fix. It contains a substance called tianeptine. Some countries have approved the drug to treat depression and anxiety. It's unapproved in the U.S., but readily available on store shelves and online. It's been nicknamed gas station heroin, and it can be highly addictive. An uptick in use has led the FDA to issue several warnings about tianeptine and its potential side effects, including seizures, loss of consciousness, and death. Dr. Peter Cohen is an associate professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School and joins me now. Thank you so much, Dr. Cohen. Can you explain exactly what tianeptine is?
Sure, Ali. Tianeptine is a pharmaceutical drug originally produced in Europe as an antidepressant. Unfortunately, at higher levels, it can be addictive, and for that reason, has not gotten widespread use. It has never been approved for use for any medical reason in the United States.
If it has not been approved for use, how is it that it can be sold in the United States?
So what we see as a common and sadly tragic pattern is that many companies take foreign drugs and introduce them directly to consumers in the United States by selling them as if they are dietary supplements. And they just appear on the market and start selling them to consumers.
We spoke earlier to two health professionals who have seen patients who have been using tianeptine, and I want to play some of what they told us.
These patients definitely have increased heart rates, they're very agitated, and they will admit that they use a lot of the product. So in other words, that they're using it very routinely, that they've built up such a high tolerance to it and a craving for it that that they'll go to great lengths to get it. The presentation of the withdrawal is going to be very similar to somebody who would potentially be going through oxycodone withdrawal, heroin withdrawal.
We were putting a fair number of people actually in our intensive care units. And we had to put them in there just because they were becoming so agitated, so confused. There was concerns for heart problems, concerns for people having seizures. And so some people, like with many withdrawal patterns, may just feel a little bit uncomfortable. A fair number of people get very, very ill and require very close monitoring with it.
You heard that last doctor say a fair number of people that he's seeing. Do we have a sense of just how big this problem is with this substance?
Yeah, it's really ticked up over the last decade. So back before 2015, we had never heard of tianeptine here. And poison control calls, reports to the FDA, very serious ones like that were described from seizures to stopping breathing to the point of intubation and deaths have all been reported, and they're coming in more frequently.
The FDA has issued several warnings over the past 6 years. And we should also note here that Neptune's Fix has agreed to a voluntary recall. But are warnings all that the FDA can do? Why are their hands seemingly so tied?
Right. So there's two problems here. One is how it got on the market in the first place. And that's because there's no need for companies to vet products that they sell as dietary supplements with the FDA before they're being sold. That's a major problem and would require a change to the law. But there's a second major problem here, which is that the FDA has been aware of tianeptine being imported into the United States since 2015. That's been 9 years. And like you mentioned, it was in 2018 when they first warned about tianeptine. So the fact that it's been many years since the FDA was aware of the risks and has done nothing other than issue warnings to consumers and to the company is frankly embarrassing, as they're neglecting their responsibility
honestly,
to protect the
that's all we
from
need to
dangerous dietary supplements.
Does this represent...
So, so I'm sort of a big proponent of legalization of basically all recreational substances. And the reason why is because, we have, a lot of research for drugs that already exist. And we could properly dosage those and have, a regulated market for something like that, as opposed to an environment where we're usually just chasing our tail while companies could sort of introduce a drug that isn't regulated because there's no legislation for it yet, and it's a drug that could potentially be more harmful. We've seen things like this in the past. There's this thing called on the streets, it's called Laggle, or K2 is the name of a brand, but it's this stuff that's sold as incense in the U.S., and it's sold as fake weed in legal states. And it's basically a combination of psychoactive, like garden plants, that it's very, very strong, like a completely different. It's like it's a menagerie of multiple drugs combined into like a smokable form of completely unregulated like things. For all people know, they're smoking nightshade, and when there's alternatives that are less harmful, according to all research, that are overregulated and carry a substantial penalty, putting people in prison for having less harmful substances, while allowing companies to sell more harmful substances. It seems like, to me, it belies a pretty deep hypocrisy with the drug war type of system. How do you feel about stuff like that? Did you I mean, I'm sure you've taken much higher level, like a course or something involved. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff on the wall.
Yeah, I mean, this is referencing your earlier point, but like, if alcohol is like around, alcohol in high doses can just like kill in the same day, right?
Yeah.
And Koreans love to drink. Like in my 20s, my hobby was getting blacked out, because
It is for lots of 20-year-olds.
I enjoyed that feeling because it felt like pressing the reset button here. Like I puke a lot, and then the next morning I wake up, I remember nothing. And at the time, that feeling was refreshing. Now I'm thinking about it, it's like stupidest thing ever, right? But
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is like, yeah, you're right. Like, if alcohol can be around like this freely, why can't all the other, like, recreational drugs, right? But um, now, realistically, it'll all follow the money, right? And no matter how much we want to deny it, no matter how much we try to like think about it, it's related to politics. And the way that politics is structured in America, it has to follow the money, right? Because bills and laws, and they're all
Lobbyists.
influenced by money, right?
Yeah.
And so pharmaceutical companies like that pharma bro, like Martin Shkreli, like could be just a pharma guy, but again, like got eventually ended in jail because of money, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
as long as there's like a big name capital firm funding something and versus not, I think, danger aside, that will be what really drives what gets regulated versus not, what actually becomes possible to purchase or not, and things like that. And for other things, I mean, unfortunately, it will be always one step late. Like somebody will die from overdose of something, and then it'll actually probably get more strictly regulated. Because
Yeah.
why? Our systems aren't really like. Don't get me wrong; they're not doing a bad job. It's not like they suck or anything, but It's just that because it is tied to the law, and because the legal system involves politics, and because politics in America get powered through capital, I'm just more or less saying it's inevitable that it will relate to big amounts of capital.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And yeah, that's definitely it is probably very related to why certain drugs are regulated and under the control of our FDA, and some are villainized and under the attack of the DEA. So, yeah.